Hello, and welcome to another episode of Myths and Stories, a Destiny 2 lore podcast. This week we are continuing our story of Saint and Osiris. But before we get to that, we got a little bit of a elephant in the room in terms of Destiny and Bungie. And Myth and I both figured let's just jump into this thing head first and see how cracked our heads are. Um, there's been a thing going on this week at Bungie with layoffs and not gonna lie, it has scared the shit out of me and I think a little bit of Myth too. Because obviously, like we're part of this community. Like we do a thing that helps the thing. The two things that we want to address: number one, we're going to keep doing this. We absolutely love telling these stories. This has always been a lore podcast and will continue to be a lore podcast until we decide otherwise. And that's what we're going to focus on. We're going to focus on the stories in this universe because we love this universe. The second part of that is we don't want to downplay the layoff portion that's going on at Bungie. We know that's it. A lot of people are affected by that, and it's at the end of the day, Bungie is a company, and a company or a corporation has one goal, and that is make money and make money efficiently. And so, shitty things happen because of that. And we're really sad about it. Honestly, like I know plenty of people that have been laid off from their jobs, and it's not a fun time. But Myth and I didn't want to come off as like, hey, everything's fine and hunky dory, everything's great. No, we get it. It sucks. But at the end of the day, Myth and I want to tell these stories. We want to keep telling these stories, so we're going to keep telling them. So now that we got that out of the way, got all the bad stuff out of the way. Let's get back to the fun stuff.
Yeah.
So last time we ended at the end of the Battle of Six Fronts, the first major offensive against the city, and we kind of saw the fallout of that over the comms between all the kind of like the major players of the battle. Shaq's kind of poking at Saint like, how many times did you die? And Saint's like, die? Who are you? And then of course Osiris had definitely the biggest it had the biggest impact on Osiris because Osiris had because he was doing his reflection thing, and each of his reflections could kind of like feel what's going on around him, and not just feel, but obviously definitely see what's going around. So he's seeing all these deaths happen around the entire battlefield. He's not just seeing like one portion of it at any given time. And so that fucks with him. That messes with his head. Like it drags him down a bit. So yeah. So now we're gonna kind of see the after effects of that. Like what happens to the city? What happens to Saint Osiris? Obviously, mainly Saint Osiris because that's the series that we're covering right now. Mm-hmm. But to kind of see like the fallout of the first major offensive against the last city.
Yeah. So we are going to be picking up this episode more or less where we left off. Our first reading is going to be chapter 11 of the Pigeon and the Phoenix lore book, which is entitled Breathe. And this is taking place pretty much right after the Battle of Six Fronts, or the immediate weeks following, I should say. And kind of giving a bit of a vibe check on like how people are feeling, how this has affected Saint, and later on we'll see Osiris to a degree, and how this structures the city going forward. So, say this is again chapter 11, and it goes like this. At the perimeter of the risen walls, sectioned off from the rest of the city, tiny farms sprout from war-rich soil and sow green dashes across plowed paddies. Snake-weave vines trellis up war-husk remains, long since abandoned. The weeks since 6 fronts had left the city in a rare lull. Wildflowers bud in the light of the traveler. The rains would come soon. Loose summer fabrics that dance colors against the sun gave way to textured wool and wrapped layers deeper in hue. Emerald tassels ripple in the wind atop iron poles, creating a wide seed row for tomorrow's festivities. Ikora leads citizens from the city core to partake in the remembrance. Saint lifts the yoke from his shoulders, and they smile to each other. He did not expect so many to walk the seed row with them before the festival. He greets each passerby as they enter the grounds. Some shake his hand, some thank him, some present violet ribbons that lace through his metallic frame. Birds perch high on the points of the wall. Zavala drives the final tassel poles to form a word-clash circle. Shax stands monolithic over a swarm of children, their entire being transfixed on him as he recounts moments of heroism in theatrical detail. Anna coaxes solar firecrackers into lanterns and sets them at the fore of the seed row for revelers. Osiris is absent, preoccupied with insatiable predilections that drive him to worry. The world had grown around him. Saint watches citizens take their turn through the seed row. Seeds scatter over each of them, and the wind carries their lanterns across fields and over the walls. Fiery glow bursts against the encroaching dusk as the people complete their circuit and return home. Guardians finish preparations and filter to their nightly posts. Activity wanes into stillness. Anyone you want to remember? Anna hands Saint an empty lantern. He turns it in his hands. What will you do when we beat back the darkness? When there is peace? I don't know, she sighs. You ever wonder about the other 13? I think about that sometimes. I am happy with just 14. Anna grips his shoulder. Me too, Saint 14. She sprinkles a handful of seeds over him. Make sure you walk the row. It's getting dark. And she smiles. I will. Thank you, Anastasia. Anna nods. You know it's just Anna, she says as she makes her way back to the city. Saint 14 fills the lantern with void light and walks the row. For Marin, he says, and he sits. Pigeons perch on him, picking out the seeds in the cracks of his armor. He watches the lantern until he can no longer distinguish it among the stars above. Good birds. I'm glad you found a home here. And that's the end of that chapter.
Oh, it's like super sweet, but it's like super sad. Like,
yeah. So this is a remembrance. They're literally sowing seeds of flowers or whatever plants these are belonging to on the battlefield where people had fallen. They're
very much
building
like a circle of lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, they're building
bring
a garden
life where there was death. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so it Saint is, and it's interesting to see the interaction with Anna here because even now, this is Anna Bray, by the way. Even now, she's like, do you ever wonder about your other 13 lives? Like, what came before 14? Perhaps before resurrection. Uh, and Saint seems very much not interested.
Sure.
He's like, this is the life I have, and that's fine.
So we're honestly kind of seeing a little bit of Anna's beginning poke through here too.
Just a little.
Like she's curious about the other 14. I wonder if, because I know Anna didn't split off from the tower until
Twilight Gap.
Twilight Gap.
Yep.
And so where she was like presumed dead because she was missing, like all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious if like her thinking about that, going, well, what was life like before this? Was kind of like a driving force for her to like start looking in her own past and find out who was Anastasia, who was this person that I am now.
Yeah. I don't know that this moment in particular is like the first time she thought of it. But I think it definitely shows that those kinds of questions have been on her mind even
Sure.
since, I don't know, we don't know exactly when she was resurrected in relation to this, but presumably ever since very early years as a guardian, she's been wondering about herself and or the technology tied to her former family, and like what does it mean, what actually, like, how does all of that work and create the things that she's seeing now. So but as Saint is down amongst the people in this remembrance ceremony, as he says, Osiris is missing, is absent. And so we can see what Osiris was doing in the next chapter, which is entitled Margins, Part 1. So this is chapter 12 of The Pigeon and Phoenix, and it goes like this. Osiris sits in the small stone garden beneath the traveler, his attempts at communion unsuccessful. He had seen the speaker stand here for hours. Ikora had begrudgingly agreed to appear in his place at the remembrance. Her words were stern, but deep down, she knows victories have lulled in complacency. There's an imminent, daunting pressure, a noose awaiting a misstep, a delicate game. Braziers cast shadows, distracting shades flickering across his eyes, breaking his concentration. Osiris breathes. The stone gardens are endless space. The skyline is raised horizon. He breathes again. He is alone in the void. Intrusions no more. There is a point in the depth. It cannot be directly viewed. And so he delves. He dives. Deeper. Still only a single point in the aphotic depth. And then nothing. Expansive. Osiris sinks to gain new perspective, and the point remains. It is so faint, distant, though he knows he can see the light. His reach stretched thin, clarity in the space between his hand and the point, the osseous white point. Dim now. The omnipresence was hungry in acknowledgement, and vast, himself against the enormity, an endless unfurling midnight, and a single lone point. And that's the end of this chapter.
I definitely he's feeling this loss. He's this is getting to him. The loss of the city is really starting, or not the loss of the city, the loss of the losses he saw around the battlefield. They're affecting him. They're getting to him.
Oh yeah, and so he's like trying to enter this meditative state here. And he's trying to commune with the traveler. He's sitting on this balcony or alcove near the traveler. He's seen the speaker, supposedly talking to the traveler in this very same spot, and so he's trying to do the
just trying to
same.
get some answers.
And yeah, because I think a big, somewhat similar to the witness, actually, in some ways, Osiris's driving thing has always seems to have always been like, there has to be more than this.
Yeah.
Like, there has to be more than just surviving to tomorrow. There has to
Yep.
be something more. And Osiris doesn't necessarily seem to internalize that as there needs to be a grander purpose. He's internalizing it as there's a grander enemy that we aren't seeing that we need to defeat before we're actually safe.
Ooh.
Because
Like really trying to look at the bigger picture, right?
yeah, because he's saying there's a noose awaiting a misstep. There's a delicate game being played. And he's trying to find anything that can point him to, like, what's the real enemy? What's the real thing that we should be focusing on that's actually the biggest threat to us, not just the fallen at our walls. And the way that it's described here with his meditation, it almost seems like he's not necessarily getting close to communing with the light. It almost seems like he's getting close to communing with the dark. Because we see that, like, dive deeper. His reach is stretched thin. There is clarity in the space between his hand and the point, which we know clarity has been used by Clovis to describe the dark.
Well, and the fact that he's talking about void here, we know void is kind of that gray area, right?
Right.
Like void's it's we use it as a light ability, but it's pretty close to dark, and we see a lot of, like, I mean, hell, we see the tormentors. They use void light.
Mm-hmm.
I say void light. They use void abilities. I don't want to call it void light because they are a what I would think is an entity of pure darkness. But yeah, so like void is that questionable, like, and I think I want to say it was back in D1 when you start learning about the void. She talks about getting lost to it.
Yeah.
And that's like the void is like the dangerous subclass to, like, mess around with.
Yeah, you can kind of lose your mind to if you focus on it too much, or lose control of it. And the vision he's given here is himself against an endless unfurling midnight and a lone white point, which is described as being dim. So I think what his vision he's getting here is him and this dim point of light, which I take to be the traveler.
I was gonna say I'm thinking that point is the traveler.
Yeah. So I think he's getting this vision of himself and this weak traveler that's barely holding on against this unending wave of dark.
Just so much darkness. Yeah.
And now he wouldn't be in a position to know necessarily what any of that might signify. But for us coming to this, from near kind of the end of the Light and Dark saga, like, this could be a warning from the traveler. Like, maybe he was successful in communing and the traveler was telling him, like, there is so much out there that's coming.
Truly giving him that answer of, like, yeah, there really is a big baddie out there. Like,
yeah.
there is a bigger baddie.
Or maybe he has tapped into the dark in some way, not necessarily the witness, but just dark energy for the first time without even realizing it. And now he's seeing, like, the dark is so overwhelming by comparison to what the traveler, like the traveler's state at this time.
Yeah.
Either way, not a great vision to have.
No. Especially with how much this battle really has affected him and his mental state.
Yeah. So he's in this vision, and we get a direct continuation of what happens next in the next chapter. So this is chapter 13, Margins Part 2. And his meditation is interrupted by somebody. And it goes like this. I am pleased to see you here. May I sit? He spoke. Cloying noise, the stone garden is now present. Osiris is once again present. And the traveler, a monarch against a bleak, crepuscular ink. You may. Osiris stands. Stay. Osiris halts. And he turns towards the speaker. The light of the traveler washes against the bone-white hue of his mask. Is something needed? There's so much activity in the city. I feel it has been too long since we last spoke. Osiris hangs, silent. He looks to the traveler, and there is a daunting pressure. Please, what troubles you? And the speaker steps towards Osiris, and Osiris inhales sharply. You have read my reports. Of course. The speaker loosens his posture, and I value your counsel. We were so close. A moment in the wrong place. And Osiris looks to the speaker, and the speaker nods. Yes, but the light guided your path. A noose awaiting a misstep. I did not see the traveler on the 6 fronts. The traveler dwarfs Osiris as it hangs over him. But you did, my son. It was in the fire that saved your brothers and sisters. It was in the arc bolts that ripped through the armies fallen. The violet shield that held the line. Do not romanticize this burden. What we wield is a weapon. The speaker shakes his head. The light wields you, Osiris. You are what you make of it. A glorious extension of its majesty in many directions. Osiris paces at cadence with his words. Then it would do well to speak clearly, to better direct me. The speaker cocks his head. Without will, then it would be no better than the darkness. I am only asking for guidance. It is a delicate game we are playing. Osiris's voice is distressed now. The speaker resumes his regal posture and then motions to the stone garden. Will you sit with me? And that's the end of that chapter.
Osiris is presenting a lot of maybe dark points here.
Yeah.
Like he's very much consumed with this idea of like the light is just we just weaponized it. Like that's all we are. Like we're just kind of like blind children. And it's interesting to think like what point in time this is in Destiny universe, to think of like we went from a golden age where everything was like great, fantastic, garden world on Mercury, Venus was livable now, and vast cities on Mars and stuff, and then to go into the dark age post collapse, and then it was just all dark. Like even the risen that were there were ruthless. They had no purpose. They had no drive, and it was a very slow evolution into this point of like, hey, we have this gift. Like we need to use it for good, and kind of combat out the darkness. Like, and we're definitely seeing Osiris here take that combat out the darkness in a very literal sense. Like, okay, so because this is combat, I have to weaponize the light. Like this is the thing, and but he's not getting direct orders. He's not saying, hey, go here, kill this, go there, defend that. It to him it just seems like blind blind combat for the sake of blind combat.
Yeah. I mean, and someone from his perspective, where he is very much like, there's a bigger threat out there, there's something else we're supposed to be doing, like we need to prepare ourselves, and he's asking this object of his faith. And I think that that's an important thing to note here, like, not to draw too many real world parallels, but this is essentially a a patron of a faith in the speaker, be that a pope or a bishop or whatever it may be. A patron of the faith is talking to someone that is having a crisis of their faith, and that
Oh
being
yeah,
Osiris. And Osiris is doing the, like, I know there's something bigger out there that we need to be preparing for, that we need to be doing something about. Why has my God, essentially, not told me what I need to do to get ready for that? Why have I just want direction. I just want someone to tell me what I'm supposed to do to keep people safe.
yeah,
And the speaker is doing the, I will say, classic redirection of
sure,
like, well, if they just told you what to do, then you wouldn't be your own person. You wouldn't have your own will. There would be no better than the darkness, which the speaker is using as, the boogeyman.
right,
Uh like and I won't say avoiding the question, but he's kind of avoiding the question. He's turning it
yeah,
all back on, like, everything you do is by the traveler's design, because you wouldn't be able to do it if the traveler didn't allow you to. Like, it's that kind of self-fulfilling prophecy.
yep.
Um, and Osiris, I don't think, is really having any of it.
No, no, no. He's definitely seeing through this, and he's like, wait a second, this is bullshit. Like, there's no way that this is the path. Like, this is it.
Yeah, and so it's kind of implied at the end there that I think the speaker is giving him the, like, well, come down, let's sit, let's uh you know continue the discussion, try and guide him in some way, uh for what the speaker interprets the traveler's will to be. uh and it's interesting, the speaker also refers to Osiris as son. Now, and we also know that Saint, as we'll see later on if we haven't already, uh, Saint refers to the speaker as father, and the speaker also refers to Saint as son. Um, I Clearly that's not, like, in a genetic
Right.
way. Um,
Well, because we saw the speaker helping the ghost find
right.
Saint and resing him, so like clearly this was not Papa Speaker. Is the speaker a guardian?
I don't believe, no, they're not, because they don't have a ghost.
They don't have a ghost. That's kind of mind. I don't know why I never put that together. That is mind blowing to think that, like, just a dude, like a non guardian, non light bearer dude, is kind of guiding all these light bearers.
Yeah. But when you are the person that proclaims themselves to be the one
That's a
that
dangerous.
yeah,
That's a
the one
fucking dangerous game to play, Myth.
the one that hears the intention of the object of faith.
That's a fucking dangerous game, Myth. That's a really dangerous game, Myth. Speaker,
Well, yeah.
what are you getting at?
But yeah, so for Saint, I think it's a little more familial, because the speaker was literally, like, the first person he saw after he was, reborn.
I imagine Saint waking up and going, Papa?
Yeah, kinda. For Osiris, though, we have no indication that the speaker was a part of his life early on. I think
Sure.
it's more of a again, it's more in that religious sense of, they religious officials are sometimes referred to as, a
The
father.
father. Yeah. Nope.
And they
I
usually
gotcha.
refer to their disciples as, son or daughter or
Yeah.
whatever. Um, so I think that's the way that terminology is being used here. But so we see that, well, Osiris is kind of struggling with this idea of like there's a bigger bad out there. Saint is struggling in a different way. And so we see in chapter 14, entitled Patron, that Saint is taking on a different burden. So this one goes like this. Stone-laid roads lead Saint 14 through the city. He walks them most days when he is home, when time permits. The people wave, they cheer, they bring offerings of their support and adoration. Breads, tokens, wonderfully spun tassels and bands of royal purple hue. His name had become synonymous with the Guardians, an image to be adhered to be revered. He smiles and shakes their hands. He smiles and accepts their gifts. Their joy is his, and he feels the weight of their royal ribbons around his neck, drawn tight by expectation. His armor is faith, and it slips and loosens in transit. They sing together. He shares bread with the chorus of voices. He ties ribbons of his own in their hair. And he remembers that his joy is theirs, and they sing him a new song, and their voices shine bright. And that's the end of that chapter.
A vastly different perspective here.
Yeah.
Like Osiris is definitely, dude. Now it just makes sense that they're a couple. You know what I mean? Like Osiris is this dark and brooding, downtrodden, like, oh, the world is shit, and Osiris is like, no, 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 it's okay, everything is fine. Like, look, we're bringing joy to the city. Dude, it just makes sense now.
Opposites attract.
That's what I'm saying.
But I do think it's worth pointing out that as much as this is about like celebration and they love him and he is happy to make them happy, that line of like he feels the weight of their ribbons around his neck. Like
Yeah.
he knows that their expectations of what a guardian should be are on his shoulders.
Yep. It's funny too because like it started off as just like well, I'm just gonna be a guardian. I'm gonna do what a guardian does, and not looking to be a hero of the city or anything like that. Just do what needs to be done, and now that has evolved into legend. And it's funny because that's like the whole like Destiny thing is like become legend. And that's what Saint has done here. He's written himself into the history books by just doing his job. And I think from his point of view and his perspective, he's seeing it as, well, I'm just doing my job. Like I'm just being a guardian. This is what a guardian does. And then to have it kind of amplified through the stories that are being told about him, and now it I'm thinking of the kids like, bring a ribbon to your saint, almost as like the coin to your Witcher type thing.
Yeah.
That's what I think of in the city. Like they're like, if you present a ribbon to him and tie it to him, then you'll live forever. And it's like that legend is now growing grander and grander and grander, and it's a heavy weight for him to carry.
It is. And remember the last reading that we did where Saint was on one of his escapades to save somebody. Like they gave him the purple handkerchief, and they said like everyone knows you got to give Saint 14 his due when you see him. Like it's become a myth propagated throughout,
Yeah.
like even outside the city. Uh, so, and say we are now moving forward in time a little bit. Um, and we saw actually this a little bit with that last entry where the streets are now stone. It's stone laid streets. It's no longer just mud trails between, tents. Uh,
We're starting to reach that city age, right?
yeah, we're starting to see the city be built. And now we're seeing reference to the tower. Um, don't know if this is the same tower as D1 or just a tower that happened, in the transition to D1, but they've built at least a tower to kind of be the the overlook for guardians and or the speaker and people of import. So we're on the tower now for this entry, which is chapter 15, titled Shepherd, and it goes like this: Father and son stand atop the tower. The city blooms as they watch, radiating outward into a lively sprawl beneath the traveler. Six fronts was a rallying cry, ringing out to call humanity to its next great cause. Thousands made their way to the last city gates, looking for credence to the many promises their hope had whispered during dead long nights. Did you imagine it would be like this when we first arrived? Saint 14 leans against the tower railing, and the speaker looks over the bustling city streets. No, in so little time. But I always believed we were capable. Do you remember when I first awoke? I do. You told me that I would be an example for others to follow. How did you know this? I didn't know. I believed in your potential. The traveler dominates a wash of blue. Beams of light cascade across its surface in a twinkling dome against the lonesome, far-off mountains. I often think of the choices we make, whether they are the right ones, whether those we have lost would agree. I try to honor their memories. We are fragile beings, exos as well. It is good to question, to look within yourself. And the speaker grips Saint 14's shoulder and pulls his stance straight. Well, I cannot begin to know the sacrifices you have made for us. I can tell you that loss is a part of life's sweetness. Saint nods. It has taught me many lessons. He raises his head, and they watch the city shift and flow. What will you do when we have won? The speaker patiently stitches the words together in his mind. Geppetto and I searched many barren miles before we crossed the cosmodrome. She had almost given up hope. And he turns to face Saint 14. That little light knew exactly where to find you, once she was given the proper place to look. The speaker chuckles to himself. There is no before or after, my son. We try, we doubt, we grow. It is all one path. And that is the end of that chapter.
Very much seeing the title is very appropriate, Shepherd.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely seeing that, like, shepherd the flock. It's kind of, again, we keep saying we're drawing comparisons to religion, but the first um, Vanguard really, I mean, all these factions,
Yeah.
they were very religious in nature. Like they looked at the traveler as a god, like they revered it as a god, and the speaker is like the median between the two of them,
Mm-hmm.
between the god and the people. And so yeah, it's and then I mean, hell, we see all the time people having crisis of faith. Zavala is obviously a huge one, um, especially more recent times. But I mean, to see Osiris in the previous one, to see him have it, and then for Saint here, he's kind of like, well, what do we do when we win? Like right now, we have a purpose, we have a drive, we have a focus, but like, what happens when that stops? And then for the speaker to be like, well, there is no end. There's no beginning either. Like it's just the path. Like we are just walking the path. It's very, very, very elegant on the speaker's part, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is interesting to see like Osiris's question that he keeps asking himself and others is like, what's the next big bad? What can we do to prepare for it? Or what is the real big bad?
Sure.
And Saint's question that he keeps asking to himself and others is, am I doing the right thing? Uh, that's his main concern is like, am I doing the right thing? Am I
Am I a good person?
kinda, yeah.
I don't
Uh,
know. Am I?
he says, I often think of the choices we make, whether they are the right ones, whether those that we have lost would agree that we're doing the right thing. Um, and I think some of this goes back to, that we know that Saint has seen our guardian way back on that very first, mission to Mercury. He's seen what the city can and hopefully will be. And so on one hand, I think that's given him motivation of like, I know it can get better. On the other hand, that's almost given him like a point of comparison to be like,
Yeah.
at all times he's asking himself, am I doing the thing that gets us there, that gets us to a
Yeah.
good peaceful place?
Giving himself that drive, that like
Right.
perpetuating the what would you call that? I guess that's just the best way to put it is perpetuating the drive of like keep being
Well,
a good person, keep the
yeah.
city, keep humanity going.
I so it's definitely a motivator, but I would also argue that he's constantly comparing himself to the vision of what he thinks he should be.
Oh, sure. Sure, sure, sure.
Like no matter what he does, I don't think Saint will ever think he's done good enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's
Man,
seeking
that's tough
validation.
though. Yeah. No, oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's tough though. That's rough. I
Oh,
can't.
it
Yeah.
is.
That's
It
rough.
is.
That's what happens when you become a legend. Like you can't unbecome a legend.
Right.
Like once you're elevated to that status of I mean just short of godhood is what I think that the image in his head that he, and I think that's the thing too, is like he has this image of himself in his head of what he thinks the people think he is.
Right.
And so like to have that as like the standard and be like, am I living up to this? Am I doing good enough to be that standard? That's a very, very heavy burden to put on your own shoulders, in Saint's case.
Yep. And yeah. So Saint has this discussion with the speaker, who I think you can say is Saint's like closest confidant, at least at this point in time.
Sure.
He believes wholeheartedly that like the speaker will never lead him astray. Um, and so he's seeking validation there. It's implied. I don't know if we have anything specific that tells us, but it's implied that this is the point, or around this time period is when the Vanguard, in the way that we know it, was formed.
Like the
Uh,
original, like
like the
one warlock,
original.
one
Yep.
hunter, one titan to speak for many. Well, I guess that's a question I've always been curious about the Vanguard. Are they speaking for the individual classes, or are they kind of like the guidance for the individual classes?
I think it's more that. I think it's more they are the.
What does it mean to be a titan? What does it mean to be a hunter? What does it mean to be a warlock type thing?
I think it's a little bit of that, and it's a little bit of they are commander in chief of their branch.
Oh, it's like a two-part. Not only from a religious standpoint, but also from a commanding standpoint and a
Yeah.
military standpoint. Okay, yeah. No, I'm following.
Yeah. So at this point in time, the Vanguard is in place with Saint as the Titan Vanguard, Osiris as the Warlock Vanguard, and Tallulah Fairwind as the Hunter Vanguard. So the first of each are those members. Um, but there has to be a leader of the Vanguard. Like there needs to
Right,
be somebody that
unifying voice.
is the unifying voice, which is the Vanguard commander, who is Zavala for us currently. Uh, and for a very brief time was Saint. So we see Saint getting that title and then what he does with it in this next entry. This is a web lore entry, so something that they put out in like a blog post type situation. That's just titled Vanguard Commander. And this one goes like this. Osiris and Saint stood on a tower platform overlooking one of the 6 paths into the city. The road behind the wall still burned with scorching pits of blue flame. So, pause. This seems like it would be closer to 6 Fronts concluding then, where they decided, like, we need a military structure. So, continuing. Vanguard Commander Saint 14, says Osiris. What a ludicrous title. The consensus wants a new leader in the wake of all of this, Saint replied. He shook his head as he gestured at the destruction beyond the city limits. It is time. Well, you'll serve them well, Osiris replied, manipulating a cube-shaped device into an array of smaller hexahedrons that floated between his fingers. Vex components, Saint thought. But I am afraid it's not a title I can keep. Osiris looked up. Father has plans for me, Saint continued. Giving up commandership in one day. That's a record. So go. Be a titan for the speaker. After this madness, they will need you to rebuild. I put the titan aside for this mission. I am a soldier. There is difficult work to be done. Osiris narrowed his eyes. What has he asked you to do this time? Take the fight to the fallen. Seek them out beyond our borders. Find them wherever they are. Strike first and hard. This is precisely what I mean when I say the speaker likes to lead you astray, Osiris muttered. You would not say that if you saw what the fallen had done to our people out there. You have forgotten how to see. The fallen are not so different from us. How hard would you fight if the light were taken from you? Those stories ring false to me, said Saint. They are not a noble people. I have fought them, and so have you. I have not fought them all, the warlock replied, pulling his hands apart to create an intricate web of hovering cubes and light. They are nothing, No threat, not like the Vex, not like the darkness. Saint stepped close enough to breathe on Osiris. Look past the wall, brother. Are you blind? Osiris folded the device into his palm and met the Titan's gaze. You know I'm the only one watching the whole canvas. But you have lost sight of why we fight. Osiris turned away and tossed the cubes again to form a miniature constellation in the twilight sky. As ex-commander, you have power to dictate a replacement, should you choose. So who's it going to be? I have recommended you for the position of Vanguard Commander. Osiris turned at this. The cubes hung listlessly in the air. You want to give me control over the databases, the vaults, jurisdiction over Owl Sector, access to the Last City Grimoire? I want you to protect our people, Saint said. For all our disagreements, you are one of the few who can. The warlock stared at the Titan with an unchanging expression. We don't have the resources to do this twice, Saint continued, motioning to the wreckage. I fought representatives of every house across this conflict. It was a joint effort to exterminate us. If threat should come to the city ever again, you will have to fight in my stead. I accept. And that's the end of that one.
Well, Don't know. I don't.
So
that's what I got to say about that.
Saint has been elected by the consensus to be the commander of the Vanguard. Has held that position for a day,
If that.
if that, and is now handing that position to Osiris.
Hey, look, responsibility, all yours now.
Yeah.
Bye. I love the reverse perspective on it too. That Osiris is like, wait, you're giving me access to all this shit? And it's like, no, you fucking warlock. Shut up. That's not what I'm doing. I want you to protect everything. Oh, like the books? More than the books, you little shit.
Yeah. But it's interesting that the reason that Saint is, without question, giving up this leadership role, one that I think resonates with him very strongly, because he sees this as like, this is the protector. This is the person that is in charge of making sure everyone else has what they need to keep everything safe, which is a big thing for him. Like that's one of his main driving forces, is keep the people safe. But he's giving that up because the speaker has told him, I need you to go be a soldier and take the fight to the fallen. And like that's a lot to unpack.
Can't do both. Can't be a commander if you're in the. Well, I guess you can, but it's a lot harder if you're running the missions. If you're in the shit doing the deed. That's hard to do both roles.
And I think this is a lot more than just being in the fields. This is Saint's crusade.
Yeah.
This is the start of him becoming the saint to the fallen. Where, he doesn't go back to the tower. Like he is gone for a period of time, doing nothing but truly genocide.
Yeah.
Like that's what it is.
Yep. What VIP 2014 does best.
Yep.
We are really good at that. That's kind of scary. We are really good at destroying entire civilizations.
We've done it a couple times now.
We're we are we the baddies?
I mean, we do have
I've got
skulls on some of our armor.
I've got a skull on some of my armor. Some of my armor is just a skull. Looking at you, dire skull of Ahamkara.
Yeah. There's
I'm
another
literally
one we
just
wiped
wearing
out.
a skull. We might be the baddies, Myth. Oh God.
Oh. But no, so we know that Saint is off to his crusades against the Fallen, and we have a entry that is not available in game because it is exclusive to the Destiny Grimoire Anthology Volume 2.
Super secret squirrel entry.
Yeah. So this is an entry that is told from the perspective of a baron that survived Saint during this time. And kind of the gives us a glimpse into what it was like to be on the other side. And so this is titled The Baron of Shanks. And to give some perspective here, this is a Elixir by the name of Secris, who is known as the Baron of Shanks, who at the point in time of this lore piece had become a shadow of Callus. And Callus was using him to execute missions with the intention at the time of killing Dominus Gaul prior to the events of Destiny 2. Trying to get revenge on Gaul for kicking Callus out. You can listen to our Cabal history if you don't know what's going on there. But Callus is asking him to tell this story about kind of like this big changing event that happened for Secris. And it goes like this. It is the eve of our mission to end the life of Dominus Gaul. The shadows are ready. But my Kel Callus, ever mindful, demands one more record for posterity. This is a story I have told him over and over. He has cried laughing at it. I do not share his love of it, but he is my Kel, so I shall tell it one last time. Before I was a shadow of Callus, I called myself Baron. Baron of what? Of nothing, really. I am not special among my people. My generation was born of the whirlwind. We are all of us misers, and misers learn very quickly to show strength or die. Even false strength is better than none. So I was a baron of Shanks. My specialty was and is in the design and armament of Shanks. My house and I made our den at the edge of the system. We hoped to be as far from the war against humanity as possible. It found us anyway, or rather, he did. The saint, the violet king of humanity's last city, the fiercest of all those called Titan, along with 5 other lights. They attacked our settlement in the night and razed it in a matter of hours. The saint was on what his people call a crusade. He hunted all Elixni across the system, and today it was our turn. By the time I was awake, I was one of the last few remaining. By the time I had activated the defensive schemata hidden across our encampment, I was the only remaining. I watched from the shadows in my stealth skin as my army of Shanks tore 5 lights apart. And when, to my amazement, the lights stood up, I set my Shanks to an interminable setting. For as long as the lights stood, my shanks would not stop firing. Their arc cannons sang into the night. I was a miser, but I built my shanks well. That left only the saint, and somehow he could smell me. He knew something or someone guided these shanks, and he hunted me, and I ran until we reached my final refuge, a bunker constructed as a last resort. Not for the first time in my life. My people were all dead. I had nothing left to lose. I made certain to wait for the furious amethyst divider on his helmet to appear in the distance before I entered the bunker. I wanted him to follow me, and he did, along with his shank, through a battery of web grenades and proximity charges. He finally cornered me inside the bunker, shining armor dented and blackened. The divider on his helm glowed an angry purple, and the light around him a sizzling void. Up close, the saint was a freakish thing. Its grace belied its size. It hurtled forward with the armor of a walker and the speed of an arc bolt. Even its movements had movements. I scrambled backwards, tilting my head back to avoid a slash from his boiling void shield. I could hear my own breath as the conjured metal sizzled just past my throat and came back for another slice as it missed. I ducked, and he knew I would, and his knee found my face, cracking the heads-up display in my helmet and sending me reeling backwards. 3 strikes in the space it took me to process the single one. My odds to finish this fight were poor, but I had him. As I stumbled back, bleeding from several open wounds in my face under the helm, I keyed a control on my waist rig, and a barrier blurred to life between us as the blade of Saint's shield cracked against the space in front of my eyes, and it bounced back with a ringing clang. I blinked and stepped back. He stopped, too, to survey his surroundings. He was stuck. The barrier kept him from advancing, and the switch on my belt had shut and locked the playsteel door behind him. I sat back, exhausted, ether and blood dribbling from my face beneath my helmet. Gunfire rang out in the distance. We stared at each other across the light of the barrier. In those days I spoke only the language of my people, but I had once stolen a glossiator from the House Judgment in the event that diplomacy with our earthborn successors was necessary. I wished I had had the chance to use it before the killing had began. But instead I used it to speak anyway. Your comrades are still fighting to stand. I did not know the light could bring you back from the brink. I had heard rumors from other houses, but I had not believed them. The saint's boiling shield dissolved into the air, and he stared at me with the expressionless eyes of his helmet. It is the quintessential gift of the light. Your people held it before. What did the traveler gift you? Many things, I lied. I had no idea. Secrets were lost to time, hidden and half-truths. He took a moment to think. What do you hope to accomplish here? He asked after a moment. I have questions, I replied. What would you like to know? The Battle of Six Fronts, the sieges at Boyle Pass, the breaking of the weapons of rain. You have done So much. So I have been told. Everyone asks about those days. What do they ask? They ask how I did it. I laugh. It made me bleed, and I wince. That is not what I would ask. And what would you ask? I would ask why you did it. The expressionless playsteel face stared at me. What gave you the right? I said. If you saw what your people have done on my world, you would know, he replied. The great machine. Do you commune with it? I asked. To this he did not respond. Reality bent with a warbling shriek, and his shield reappeared in his hand. He started to look for a way out, scanning the corners of the room and the barrier projection system. I think I can kill you, I said as I watched him. The saint said nothing and continued his survey of the chamber. Your small shank came in here with you. It is hidden now, but I saw it. It is the key to your light, is it not? There are enough explosives under us to tear a walker in two. Try it, he said, looking at the ceiling. Kill us both. You'll do my work for me. My friends will be safe. He stopped. He had found no way out. We stared at each other across the barrier. What are you waiting for? He asked. I thought about it and found I could not do it, given the choice. Out of fear? Indignation? Perhaps both. I thought I had nothing to lose, and I was wrong. Do you think, I said slowly, that if I allowed you to live, the great machine would bless me again? The saint did not respond. It loves you, does it not? And the gunfire of my shanks echoed faintly outside, and I keyed a switch on my waist rig, and the barrier came down, the doors unlocked, and outside my shanks ceased firing. The saint stared down at me through the dented, blackened helm, and he left. I assume he convinced his friends to leave too. I kept watch on him through the vast Cabal battle net, and he has continued since to lead many successful campaigns against my people. And that's the end of the reading.
What? What? I don't even know. I don't even know what I don't even know. Like, how? First. Okay. First, how did he outsmart him? How did this little? I say little Elixni as if he's nothing. He's a captain. He's a baron. He's the shadow. The shadow of Callus. Like, that's like the highest rank you could get in Callus's hierarchy. And then to like lead him in there and trap him, that's
Yeah. Well, I think there's a couple things. Like, he trapped him, yes, but he also trapped himself. Like the whole thing,
a one-way path.
Yeah, the whole thing was, I know that I have that building rigged to blow up in a way that I think will be enough firepower to kill him. And
well, that's the thing too. Is like he's expecting it to be able to kill the saint and Saint's
his ghost, his little shank.
His little shank. I love that he keeps referring to him as a little shank. Yeah. But like I don't know, because where does the ghost go when it despawns?
I mean, I don't know that we know, and
That's I don't know that they know either.
the Elixni at this point certainly don't know. He just like, I saw him come in here. He's hiding, but he's got to be here
He's got to be
somewhere.
physically in this space.
Right.
Oh my gosh! So he doesn't even know that like he does this, and this Baron would die, the body of Saint would die, and then the ghost would just be like, boop.
Yeah. So from the Baron's perspective, he's like, "Hey, I'm blow us both up."
Yeah,
And
I got you under a
Saint,
barrel.
Saint came into this room because, I think from Saint's point of view and from any Guardian's point of view, like, they're invincible.
Yeah.
Like they're like, there's nothing you can do that's going to actually like pose true harm to me. And so Saint walked in and got himself stuck and is like, all right, do it. Pull the trigger, blow us up. And this Elixni has that, like, I thought I could do it. I thought I could, do a suicide mission essentially.
Yeah.
But I don't have it in me. Like, when it came down to it, he's like, I can't press the button.
It's interesting what happens when crazy looks crazy in the face and crazy answers back, and because that's essentially what happens. Like, the Elixni is crazy for even thinking that this is going to work. Gets him in there, gets him locked down. Like, all right, suicide, go. And then crazy looks back and goes, do it. I dare.
Yeah.
I double dare you. What are you going to do? And then, like, you answer, like, you're like, what? No, I'm the crazy one. You can't also be the crazy one. That's not how this works.
So from the Elixni's point of view, he comes to the realization that he can't pull the trigger. And so his rationale now, as he's had this discussion with the Saint, is, you have been gifted the light by the Great Machine. The Great Machine loves you. That's why it gave you these gifts. So if I don't kill you, if I let you walk away, do you think it'll love me too again?
I'm telling you, that's a level of that's a religious thing, myth.
Oh, I mean, like the Fallen very much, like, it's the Great Machine. They revered it as a god as well in a lot of ways.
This is yeah. This is dangerous, myth. This is, wow. I just realized the scope of what is going through this Elixni's mind. Wow.
And so the Elixni drops the trap, drops the barrier between itself and Saint, and unlocks the doors, and is essentially saying, like, I am not going to try to harm you, in hopes that, our God will choose me again.
That's fucked up, myth. That's dangerous as shit, but it's, Jesus, this is,
And we don't know what was going through Saint's head at the time, like what his perspective on all of this was, but Saint just walked away. Saint left this Elixni alive and walked away. And did continue to still lay siege to other Elixni encampments, but for whatever reason, this interaction, he let this one go.
It had to have got to him mentally.
Oh, I
right?
think so. I think
like
so.
For an Elixni to go, do you think it'll love me? Like, that just that, even that concept, I think, is enough to, like, put a kink in Saint's thought pattern and go, what?
Yeah.
And just, like, start thinking about that concept of, like, well, I don't know, would it, like, I mean, it was technically your god first, like, but do Guardians know that at the time?
I mean, like Osiris told Saint beforehand, like, Osiris states, like, they're just chasing the traveler, like, the traveler left them, but Saint has said, like, I don't believe those stories. Like, there's no way the traveler would have chosen this barbaric,
crazy people. But it's funny because like the Guardians at the time are looking at like this hordic barbaric people, but they've evolved into that
Right.
because of losing the light. So it's they're not seeing the full picture yet of the Elixni at this point in time. Like we know now that like they only resorted to that because that just kind of like a, I guess like a baser instinct kind of took over,
Yeah,
and
I
then the whole
mean,
pirate thing happened, and yeah,
we know that they had the long drift, so they had to
yeah,
survive who knows how long between the whirlwind and arriving in our solar system. During the long drift, they had civil unrest and like wars between families and like yeah, like
I mean they were like
they came
selling and
out in a
buying
bad
children to
spot.
each other.
Yeah.
I mean that's, yeah, no, that's,
Like they already came out of the long drift in a bad spot where they were
yeah,
used to infighting and every person for themselves. And so it's no wonder that they took that same attitude into like, those are the people that stole our God from us.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's, again, you start getting that level of religious zealotry, and that's dangerous territory.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, um, the next area that we're going to focus on, the next, I hesitate to call them entries. Um, so this is after Saint has returned from his crusades. Osiris is still presumably the Vanguard commander, but has been very lax in his duties as far as actually showing up to direct the consensus in any meaningful way. And in a lot of cases has left Ikora to do it in his stead. Um, so this is going to be a little different because I have not done a reading like this before. We are going to read out of a comic.
Ooh,
So, this is the Destiny 2 comic titled Fall of Osiris, and it shows the events leading up to Osiris's exile from the city.
you're gonna get real descriptive with these, aren't you?
Well, I think I'm gonna try and transpose it into a into like just a back and forth audio as much as I can.
I'm excited.
With the
This is new territory. I'm
with the
excited.
with the dialogue that's happening at least. Um because like this is a pretty significant portion of Osiris, of like what happened with Osiris, and so it's not really something we can just leave out.
Right.
I will say comics.bungie.net. These comics are available for free online still. You can go and see them. I am going to be leaving out some of the nuance just because I can't transpose visual pictures into audio. I'm sorry.
Oh, he's gonna do it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm gonna get him to do it.
So I would recommend going and checking them out when you get an opportunity to.
Y'all thought he was
They're
a fantastic voice actor. He's gonna be a transposer now.
Yeah. I will say that these comics have had some criticism in the past over like not really having the same tone in game as the characters as far as like the dialogue choices and whatnot. Um, but I think the information or the general progression of the narrative is still very relevant to the story as we know it. Um,
The meaty bits is the important part. How the meaty bits are are conveyed is not the importance, right?
yeah, yeah. So I think they're still worth going to see or going and checking out. But I'm gonna try and put them into a format that makes sense here. So, without further ado, this is the Fall of Osiris issue number 1. That goes like this. So this is a discussion between Osiris and Ikora. They're in kind of Osiris's like workshop area, presumably. And it starts with Osiris telling Ikora, "They can't be bought Ikora, can't be bargained with, and when you kill them, more take their place. They're called the Vex, a threat from outside the universe. They'll kill us all if we give them half a chance. And Ikora responds, to be fair, Osiris, since the Traveler arrived, the Vex aren't the only ones who want us dead. Most of the galaxy does. True, but the Vex are a unique threat, Ikora. There's at least a chance that the other races will tire. There's a chance that they'll die out. The Vex won't do either. If what you're saying is true, we would need to be on the watch for them for, what, forever? No, my student, not forever. Forever is linear. We must oppose them for longer than forever. The next panel transitions into Osiris and Ikora still continuing their discussion, but now kind of walking down a city street. And presumably we're catching them kind of midway through another conversation, because Ikora is starting this panel by saying, Osiris, you can't say things like that. And he's got some followers behind him, some people that are kind of trailing him in a almost paparazzi kind of way. And she turns to those followers and says, listen, followers of Osiris, what he means when he said this. And Osiris interjects, I mean exactly what I said. The Traveler's death was a gift. You can't mean it. The Traveler sacrificed itself to save us, but it wasn't. Look at it, Ikora. Tell me, what do you see? I see the one that created all of the guardians like us and our ghosts. It gave us the power to protect ourselves. All of this is true, but it is also the one that brought these threats to our shores. The Traveler is the first mover for the Vex and all the other threats we now face. If you want to know who's responsible for the death of billions, right there is your answer. And he's pointing up at the Traveler above them. And so it's now a panel where it's showing, as they're progressing through the city streets, that there are posters that have been placed around the streets that are of Osiris, or a caricature of Osiris, and underneath it says, the Guardian of Truth. And it explains that in kind of the subtext that these things that Osiris has been saying about like the research he's been doing have all been he's been very open about it. He's not trying to hide this info. They've all been overheard by people either in the city, or he's actively been like doing seminars kind of thing, and people are misconstruing this into essentially another religion where Osiris is the true kind of prophet in that in that viewpoint, rather than the speaker. And so Osiris finds one of these posters, and he's very upset by it and tears it down. And Ikora, comments, I don't know what you expected, Osiris. What I expected were people to hear my message, to follow my teachings, and aid me in my research into the Vex, not to turn me into a celebrity. We are fighting a never-ending battle against literal forces of darkness. I am not concerned with name recognition. And the next panel that we get now is Saint coming in with a dropship, and now it is just Osiris and a dropship of his own, presumably called out there by Saint. And the subtext here is saying, Ikora has been trying to reach Osiris, and she's not the only one. Others have been trying to make a breakthrough and make him understand. And so now we have, Sagira talking to Osiris as Saint is approaching, and Sagira asks him, why did Saint want to meet all the way out here? The man wants to talk, and when Titans talk, there is oftentimes property damage. Saint transmats in, and Osiris greets him. Saint 14, it's good to see you again. I've heard you now call your ship the Grey Pigeon. Pigeons are the only birds left in the city, Osiris. I remember them, and I remember what we're fighting to protect. It's something we both should be fighting for, Osiris. You are Vanguard Commander now. You are the wall that stands between humanity and oblivion. I am fighting the war my way, which is, that I don't mind saying, the only way that will let us win. I am not the only one concerned. Father is concerned too. But these are just words, and we could share these over comms. Come on, show me what the Vanguard Commander can do these days. And so they have a sparring match, essentially.
Aggressive negotiations.
Aggressive negotiations, yeah. And so but they do kind of like talk between trading blows. And so that discussion more or less.
We call that shit talking.
Not exactly in this case. But that discussion more or less goes like this. So Osiris starts based off the whole father is worried. And he says, don't tell me you still believe in the speaker enough to call him father. He is the voice of the traveler, brother. When he speaks, we should all listen. Everyone obeying one man isn't a civilization. It's a dictatorship. There must be room for dissent, for skepticism, for research. There is, my friend, but not for us. We are soldiers, and you are supposed to be our leader. Do not lead us to a place we cannot go. What would you have me do, my friend? Abandon my studies, hand this world and everything in it, including your pigeon, over to the Vex? I would have you stay on the path with us. Please, Osiris, do not do this. My path is my own. And Osiris kind of stomps off back to his ship. So the next panel here is now taking place in the tower, or one of the original towers at least. And this is Ikora, Andal Brask now at this point, and Saint 14, as well as Saladin is here, kind of off to the side. And so Andal is now speaking about someone we know about from previous episodes, and he's speaking into like a comm unit, and he's saying, "Following her on the move, Saladin. One of my scouts, Cade 6, has eyes on the Kell of Kings. Do you trust him, Andal? Cade may act like an irresponsible idiot when he's outside the tower, and, well, when he's in the tower too, come to think of it, but you have never seen him in action. I trust him with my life. If Cade says trouble is coming, Saladin, I suggest we believe him." And then the speaker walks into this command center as this discussion is happening and interrupts, saying, "And what does Osiris say?" And they all kind of turn to acknowledge the speaker. And the speaker addresses Ikora and says, Osiris, child, where is he? He sends his regards, speaker. He what? His research is at a critical stage, speaker. I've confirmed with the Jensum scribes. They're consulting the records, but there's no indication that I did not ask for the opinion of a student, Ikora. Where is Osiris? I may be a student, but I am a guardian. I am perfectly capable of handling this in his absence. Do you believe this city can be defended without the commander of the vanguard? Without the warlocks? The warlocks are here, speaker. I speak for them, and we will protect this city from both the fallen and any other threats. And then Saint comes in. Father, do not worry. Osiris will not abandon his duty. And then we move on to the next panel, which is Ikora now speaking to Sagira in Osiris's workshop as Osiris is, meddling away with some kind of Vex construct and off in the background. And Sagira is addressing Ikora, saying, don't worry about it, Ikora. Yes, Osiris is distracted right now. Yes, he's seen some things. Still trying to figure it out, but Saint should have known that Osiris wouldn't put up with politics or that weird or the creepy speaker. And Ikora then goes, Sagira, the speaker is the leader of the consensus. So, does that make him a god? People are worried the speaker has been teaching that Osiris is obsessed, dangerous. The speaker claims that his followers are being led to their destruction. You're his ghost. You have to talk to him, Sagira. He doesn't listen to me anymore. The speakers all talk. At least they named him right. And besides, the whole followers of Osiris thing is just a fad. They'll find something else to latch on to soon. Osiris knows what he's doing. And so Ikora, is kind of rebuked and leaves the workshop. And the next panel, and second to last panel of this book, is showing us someone dressed in the Cult of Osiris robes, very similarly to a Brother Vance, although it does not appear to be Brother Vance, who is kind of like up on a soapbox, talking to this crowd of people around him. And he's announcing to the crowd, I have heard his voice, learned his teachings. Osiris has transformed me. When you know as I do what the traveler really is, you will never believe the lies of the consensus again. And Osiris is walking by down this street as well to kind of catch the attention of these people. And they're all shouting at him like, there he is, the teacher. Osiris, tell us what is to come. Are we to die today? Tomorrow? Oh, great one, people need your guidance. And then they see Sagira, and they're also kind of like fanboy over Sagira and like, the ghost of the great one. She has noticed me. I am blessed. And Ikora approaches Osiris now and tells him, perhaps you should speak to them, Osiris. Encourage them to find their own truths. And he responds, walking away from the crowd, a distraction from my research. I see now that entertaining the followers of Osiris was a mistake. The only way to ensure my words don't get twisted would be to write them down. Nikora responds, anything you write will be treated as holy text, Osiris. No, I will make it very clear that this is research, not religion. Ikora, I already know what you're about to say. Yes, that this is madness. You don't understand. I will choose my words carefully. My student, I promise you, once the fruits of my research are available to read without distortion, the followers and the speaker alike will stand down. They'll see what I speak of in the future is data-driven, not some prophecy. Well, the very next panel, and the last panel, is now another person in those robes of Osiris holding a book with Osiris's symbol on it, who's kind of hawking to the crowd that, you know, the Osiris's book of prophecies, you know, come get one now before supplies are gone. And there's a close up of the kind of poster behind this person, the sales tent. And it says, prophecies of Osiris, learn the future, know the traveler's true purpose, prepare for the darkness. And we see, zooming out, we see Saint and the speaker are at the back of this crowd and seeing what is going on. And Saint is trying to console the speaker to some degree, and he is saying, Father, I'm not sure that this will be necessary. The speaker saying, it is entirely necessary. Collect them all, every copy, and burn them. I will not have this heresy infecting my city. And that's the end of the first comic.
Dude, there's a lot of shit going on in here.
Yes.
The main thing to kind of take away from this entire comic is this is the beginning of the cult of Osiris.
Yep.
It's Osiris is, man, there's a transformation happening here. Osiris is still kind of reeling from all these losses throughout everything, and still trying to say, hey, there's a bigger dark here. There's a bigger picture we need to be looking at. And it's that he is becoming legend. Like he tells one person, like, well, it's the traveler's fault. Or, he tells the whole crowd, it's the traveler's fault that we're even in this situation. Like, if the traveler never showed up, we would never, none of this would have ever happened. So yeah, that big dead thing up there did nothing but create more issues for us. And then of course you tell that to a few of the wrong people who take it a little bit too literal, and now you've started this like following, and we see the posters around the city of, hey, Osiris speaks the truth. Learn the truth from Osiris. Like, and he's like, no, this is stupid. I'm here to do research. Like I'm trying to find the bigger threat. I'm trying to find the rest of the Vex and figure out what the bigger threat is in terms of the Vex. And then, more time passes, and now you got people up there preaching, hear the words of Osiris, look upon his ghost and have his ghost bless you for the, yeah. Like this is, and Osiris is like, this is fucking crazy. This is stupid. I'm just going to do my research. I'm going to write all this shit down. And then they're like, no. You write that down. Now you've got a holy text. Like you gotta not do that. He's like, no, it'll be fine. Look, I'm going to write all my research down. It'll be a science paper. It's fine. 2 weeks later, come find the Holy Bible of Osiris. Get your copy today. Yeah, no, the whole thing just goes downhill instantly. Like he's created this cult of personality out of act, like just act kind of accidentally, just kind of like speaking his mind, but like you speak your mind to the wrong people and they're going to take it way too literal, and then now you've got this like, And now the speaker's like, no, this cannot happen. Burn it all. And now for that to come from a, I mean, we've said it before, a religious head, burn all these texts. Like now it's starting to become a religious war.
Yeah, well, and the
Of
speaker even says, "I will not have this heresy in my
yeah,
city." Like, yeah,
this is full on religious war between father and son, essentially, and that's like that. That's bad. That's
yeah,
there are no
real
winners
bad.
in that situation. Like you oust Osiris as a competing force. Like you burn his text, and then all that does to the zealot followers is like they see they don't want us to see the truth. That means that Osiris has something to say, and it's correct and right and just, and we need to further our purpose. Like there's no fucking winning at this point.
Yep, yep. So, that is actually where we are going to stop for this episode. I know we're cutting it a little shorter than we normally do, but just the next entry is another comic, and that's going to take us well over our normal time, and this is kind of a good stopping point. So I say we will continue what the decline of
Yeah.
the city and the civil unrest at the start of our next episode.
That is interesting to kind of see this, like this rise and fall of what's going on. The rise of the golden age, and the fall of the collapse, and then the further fall with the risen and the warlords, and then the slow climb back up to like, oh, now we have a city, we have a centralizing point, and then now it starts becoming religious in nature of, oh, the traveler, the god, yes, praise the traveler. And then it'd be like, well, I mean, yeah, praise the traveler, but he's kind of the reason like we're in this spot. Like heresy, no, you get out of here, you. And then to see the downfall start happening again, like it's yeah, this
Yep.
is wild. This is just wild. Okay, well, we got any shout outs?
We do have a shout out for this episode. So I say this one is coming to us from Apple Podcast. Someone was kind enough to leave us a text review there, a 5-star review at that. So thank you very much for that. This is coming to us from a Ztories, who says, "Absolutely love listening to you two and your brainstorming banter. Myths spot on predictions and Zor's, well, he makes me laugh.
Yay!
And I
I'm
think
doing my part.
there you go. I listen to you guys like it's a full-time job, 40 to 50 hours a week. And you have made me fall in love with the lore of the universe just when I was falling out of love with the game. Then they say the Emperor protects. Wait, wrong, far future fantasy.
Wrong, far future. The Emperor is an illithid and he needs to die. I mean, no, wait, no, bad.
I think in this case they're making a 40K reference, but
well, I went Baldur's Gate with it because I've been so sucked into Baldur's Gate.
Understandable. But anyways, they say love you guys and keep it up.
I do so like the 40K reference too. That's both, but that could go either way, and that I like both of them.
Yeah. But I'm glad you enjoy it apparently enough to listen to a lot of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and again he brings up like Destiny's in a weird spot right now. We get it.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna keep going though. We really like doing this. It's Myth and I kind of had like a little back and forth before we recorded this of like, do we do it? Do we not do it? Do we like let's take a temperature here of each other? And at the end of the day, we're like, no, this is about the stories. This is about the cool stories that happen in Destiny that aren't told up front and center. Like we love seeing the like what is the driving force behind Osiris? Why is there a cult of Osiris? What makes Saint so noble and regal and yeah, like how did he become the pigeon lover? Like that's what we're here for. We're here to tell those cool stories, like, and that's what we're gonna keep doing.
Absolutely.
All right.
So I say that's the only shout out we've got for this episode. But if you like what you heard and you want to support us in some way, leaving a review on your platform of choice goes a long way. That really helps. If your platform allows it and you feel strongly enough, you want to leave a text review. We love reading those. Or you can reach out to us on Twitter at Myths and Stories, Z instead of an S in Stories. And you may hear yourself as a future shout out.
Yeah. Well, I haven't created a character in a while, so I guess I don't really have anything to thank. I don't know. What can we thank? You know what? Thank you, Sunbracers, for being the best freaking exotic in the world for solar warlocks. I mean, Osiris uses them, and he's
yeah.
he's a religious head. So if he uses them, they got to be good, right? That's not the right reasoning.
I feel like that. Yeah, I feel like that's some dangerous reasoning there.
That's a poor reasoning. All right. Anything else, Myth?
No, that's it.
All righty. Well, then, from all of us, Lore Daddies, to all of you Guardians out there, we'll see you next time.